Welcome to How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast, a mix of both solo episodes and expert interviews. Our ideal listener is an early career, ambitious, and passionate online language services provider. She is committed to professional growth and achieving success in the fiercely competitive translation and interpreting industry. She balances multiple responsibilities with resourcefulness, values mentorship, is open to learning, and investing in her professional development journey. She embraces technology and seeks to optimize workflow, eager to connect with like-minded peers and build out her professional network. She is determined to overcome challenges and become a sought-after freelance translator. And here's your host, medical translator and translator business mentor, Jason Willis-Lee.
Sapna Pieroux is a multi-award-winning brand consultant, author, and speaker with over 20 years corporate experience and 9 years dedicated to helping entrepreneurs get visible. With her deep expertise in both business and personal brand strategy, she empowers leaders to confidently show up, stand out, and attract the right opportunities. Sapna's proven vision process has driven measurable success for her clients, including price increases of 62%, turnover doubling, and securing major investments. Whether you're unsure about your brand's positioning, struggling visibility, or feeling icky about personal branding, Sapna's strategic guidance will help you reflect your true brilliance, grow your influence, and make a powerful impact. And welcome to another episode of How to Find More Direct Clients, the podcast that makes digital marketing easier and more enjoyable by blending smart business strategies with the right dose of tech. I'm your host, Jason Willis-Lee, digital marketing specialist. And today I'm very excited to welcome my very special guest. Her name is Sapna Pieroux. She's a branding specialist. Sapna, fantastic to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me, and great pronunciation of my surname there.
You can see my French speaking skills there. Can you share a bit, please, about your own business journey and your unique vision of where the personal branding sector is heading? Because that's your space, that's your niche. How did you get into this area?
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I'm a brand consultant and an author and speaker. I've spent the last 30 years amplifying business brands, so 20 years in corporate and the last 9 years in working with entrepreneurial brands and helping them get visible. So my book, Let's Get Visible, was actually written to help elevate company brands and to kind of help people stand out in their marketplace. The book won an award as a startup inspiration at Business Book Awards when it came out 4 years ago. So it's got this vision process in it, and the book and the process have been very successful. And the vision process is so powerful that we can actually rebrand companies in a day. But I had a couple of years out of the business due to personal circumstances, and when I came back this year, I found that people were coming to me saying, "Look, I don't need a rebrand. I don't need a new logo or anything like that. What I need is your help with my personal brand." And it got me thinking, because I was like, well, I do business brands, I don't do personal brands. But actually, especially in the entrepreneur world, the link between the two, business and personal, is so inextricably linked that it got me thinking. And so what I've done now is I've adapted my vision process as a framework for helping people build their personal brand.
Okay, so Sapna, can you discuss how solopreneurs can use their personal brands to identify a unique value proposition? How do they cultivate their voice? How can they show up confidently in a personal brand? I'm talking about personal brands because all of my listeners will be freelance translators, online language service providers. So we all create personal brands. And I'm interested in helping them with that. How can a personal brand amplify their voice and get them more clients, get them more visible?
Okay. So the first thing is that you do need to be visible, because you can't buy what you can't see, right? So it is absolutely vital for showing up in your business as you and yourself. The only thing that's unique about your business is you. And that's why there's been this whole rise of the personal brand, especially lately, as the business landscape is getting so busy. There's like over 1 billion people on LinkedIn now, and that's pretty much where I play. So how do you stand out? How do you carve your unique value proposition? The point of a personal brand is to help you stand out and show up with that clarity, with that confidence, so that you can increase your influence, your impact, and of course your income. So one of the things that I do with clients when we first start working together is I ask them to think about, so this is from the vision process. It's the first exercise we do, and it's called the FAB exercise. So it's talking about 5 aspirational brands. And I want you to think about other brands or other personal brands. So which entrepreneurs out there have a personal brand that you aspire to be like? It's not about copying them, but it's about trying to find out what resonates with you and what connects with you, and how you want to be seen. So, what does this person make you feel like? How do they show up? What is it that they actually do that you have locked into, and you kind of think, well, I want to be like them when I grow up, or when my brand grows up, or I want to be like them.
Yeah.
So what makes them aspirational? So think about them, and then we start pulling apart, as the first part is we start pulling apart, well, what are the elements of that? Is it that they come across as really approachable or really fun or really authoritative? It's kind of what's the personality and how does your brand want to feel? Now, we've all got personal brands, whether we acknowledge it or not, or whether we do anything about it or not. And your personal brand is literally just what everybody thinks about you. It's what is Jeff Bezos said, it's your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yes, I've heard that.
So we all have a brand, we all have a personal brand. So by working on it, it's about being intentional about what people say about you and about how they remember you and about how they think about you. So we're all different people. When Sapna Pieroux, the entrepreneur, is different to Sapna, the wife, or mum, or daughter, or friend. So we've all got different facets of our personality, but it's about intentionally coming up with what are the 5 values, say we go between 3 to 7, but what are the 5 values that are non-negotiables for me, and how I want to show up, and how I run my business, and how I treat people, and how I want them to feel about working with me. So the reason to work on your personal brand, to go back to your question about how is it going to help you attract clients, is that it helps you stand out from that sea. It helps you get visible. We cannot buy what we cannot see. Obviously, it's not just the personal brand, but it should underpin every single other thing you do, in terms of how you show up, in terms of what your branding looks like as well. That needs to reflect the personality that you have decided that you want to show up with. Is it cool and authoritative? Is it warm and friendly and approachable? There were very different feels, and it affects the language that we use as well. So how, if you've got somebody writing your copy for you, or you've got website copy, you've got social media copy, how does that, what's the language you use, what's the language you don't use? So getting that clarity. Start with the 5 aspirational brands, because sometimes it's quite difficult to think about it as yourself, like for yourself. So think about other brands that you like, and then start realizing why that is important to you. And that's when you start to understand the sort of brand that you want to build. So that's the first step that I would take. And then that feeds into everything else.
What is the role of content creation in personal branding? How does content creation fit into getting that personal brand across to prospective clients?
Well, it's incredibly important. I am on LinkedIn personally quite a lot. I could be doing more on other platforms. So YouTube is one of those areas that is woefully underused, certainly by me. But getting into video is another thing that, I'll be honest, I'm a work in progress as well, right? I feel incredibly nervous when the camera and the little green light points at me. Not so much when I'm having a conversation with you, which is why podcasts are another way of getting visible. I can have a conversation with someone, and that feels a lot more relaxed than just staring at a screen. content creation in terms of video, in terms of posting, in terms of just being, again, it's about being visible. If you're not top of mind, people aren't going to think about you when they have the problem that you can solve. It's also about conveying the problem that you solve for people.
Yeah.
And you have to tell people over and over again, because, you know, it used to be 7 touch points or 7, you know, incidences of seeing you before people would take action. It's now something ridiculous like 27. Because again, we're being bombarded by so many messages all day and every day.
Agreed.
What I call an information tsunami. So you've got to give value. You've got to understand your client's problems and be able to talk about those, and really understand what they're looking for, and then show up, you know, telling people that you can help them, and showing them how.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's problem-aware content that you need to clearly frame the problem you solve. Then there's solution-aware content and frame yourself as the solution. Can I ask you, is the reason you're nervous when the camera points you or you see the green light blinking, is that because of imposter syndrome? Is it fear of failure? Is it perfectionism? Is it procrastination? You know, the 4 Ps. I think
Ooh,
we're both
I
familiar.
realized today was going to be a therapy session, but no, for me, it's perfectionism.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
actually not imposter syndrome, because I know that I'm really good at what I do and I can get results for clients. And that actually, you know, it took a while for me to believe that as well. Like, enough clients tell you, and you have to start believing them.
Yeah.
So I know that I can help people, and I know that I make a difference. For me, it's like I don't like, you know, can I say fucking up? I don't like fucking up on camera. And that's, you know, you can talk about the therapy side of things. That's to do with me being little, and being afraid to make mistakes.
Mm.
So yeah.
Let's do a practical exercise. I mean, something I want to do for my personal branding moving forward is get rid of this hideous white background, which actually talks about my service provision business, which, as you rightly pointed out, I'm moving away from and
Yes, the first thing
into
I said is change the background.
change the background. The problem is there's no sort of wall behind me where I could get something of the quality of what you've got behind you. How would I do that pictorially? How would I sort of take a picture of that and perhaps, you know, load the picture? Because I really don't want to move my workspace around the flat. This is the quietest place in the flat for me to work, and I don't want to go into the salon where other people are moving around and distracting me and living their lives. How would I mean, my immediate problem shoot is to just do it pictorially, just stage a picture and then load the picture, as is the one you're seeing. That is a picture as well. Is that possible? Is that ethical? Can I do that?
Well, you can do anything you want, but I mean, I actually, so I'm starting a personal brand course, bringing some women along on the personal brand course that we were just talking
Mm-hmm.
about earlier. And part of that is the Zoom room. I think it's a very small part of it, but it's absolutely in the 4th step of the vision process, the second eye in there.
Yeah.
Talk about image, and image is how you show up. Now, how you show up is not just in your Zoom room, it's obviously in real life as well.
Yes.
It's about the whole image of the entrepreneur. We're talking like styling. You know, I've just completed a styling course as well, so I can help clients with that too. It's about you know, their Zoom room. It's about, you know, where are they taking clients to have meetings? You know, have they got an office space, or are they meeting them in McDonald's, or are they signing that 100 grand deal in a, you know, in a nice hotel, so hotel lobby or something? So that would be, you know, image is part of that, and the Zoom room is part of it.
Absolutely.
I I advise against the fake Zoom screens, because
Mm-hmm.
there's odd things to the edge of your head and your hands. I talk a lot with my hands, so it would make my fingers look webbed. And it always, I find that when you're speaking, it's a bit distracting, because you're kind of like, I'm a bit nosy and I'm like, what's going on behind? Well, I can just get a little bit there behind his ear as you're moving around. So I start to look at that and start to not focus on what you're saying.
Distractions. Yeah.
The other thing that I would say is, if your Zoom screen is actually saying the wrong thing, which yours is, which is quite unusual, I would change that as a, you know, as a
That's the
priority.
best thing to change. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Which you can do in Canva very, very cheaply. You know, you don't need a professional designer. She says being a professional designer, but you don't need someone like me to create a Zoom screen if that's what you're insistent on doing. But I would advise sectioning off an area of your room where you can actually show background, things that
backdrop,
to you and tell a story. Your Zoom room is really prime real estate. When you're showing up, my room here tells a story and has points of interest that, you know, spark conversation. People can see that my book's there. It brings them into the Zoom room, as do I. You know, I've got the typewriter. You mentioned all the elements in there, you know, the hours, but intellectual,
the writing.
the vision, the eye chart is actually my dad's, because he was an eye surgeon, but it kind of it tied in with the vision process, and he wanted me to be an optician when I grew up, bless him. And then I've got a few awards there as well, as you know, sort of dotted around my plant. So it tells more of a story. And personal brand is not just about fixing your client's problems, showing up, fixing your client's problems, or telling them what the solutions are. Personal brand is about building a persona online that people are drawn to because they want to know the person as well, right? It's about showing up, pretend you're networking. You don't just go in with a pitch. You kind of ask people about themselves. You tell them a little funny story about what happened on your way to the networking event, maybe, or, you know, and you can do that online as well by, you know, the odd little photos of you doing things that are nothing to do with work. You know, you don't have to put your kids on there if you don't want to put your kids on there.
No.
Certainly don't have to post your breakfast. We're not, you know, it's not Instagram in the, you know, early noughties, but showing little bits of behind the scenes, showing a little bit about what makes you who you are, a little bit of your backstory. You know, even sharing some of your vulnerabilities, not, you know, it's not a pity party, but, you know, I've just shared that I get nervous on camera. It's a human condition.
Yeah.
And actually just making you more personable. I got so much traction. I mean, this is really, you know, a bit of an out there one, and you don't have to do this at all. Goodness, I hope you don't have to. But when I got cancer a couple of years ago, I alluded to a couple of years out of the business. I didn't show up so much on LinkedIn. I kind of wish in retrospect I had and shared my journey there as well, because I shared it on Facebook and people found it so inspiring. I did about 3 posts on LinkedIn, just one to tell people that I was diagnosed, one in the middle to sort of let people know I was still alive, and then one at the end to kind of, you know, tell people that it was over and I was back to work. But even sharing those small bits of the story really made people connect with me. I got connections from all over the world, and then, you know, it's kind of given people a different aspect to me. Not that I got cancer, but it was actually how I was dealing with it. My sense of humor was what people were actually blown away by. And that makes people warm to you. So it doesn't have to be anything as severe as, you know, as cancer, but just showing that you've got a sense of humor, a warm personality, are again most things that will attract people to you.
Yeah.
And make people think, oh, I'd quite like to work with them, and make people remember you as well. It's about being memorable. Think about, you know,
Very true.
how much social media we scroll through, Jason. We scroll through the height of Mount Everest every 20 days.
You said that in your webinar. You gave the figure. I like that. And you had a picture of Mount Everest on there, which is
A
very
picture of
good.
Mount Everest, just to
Yeah.
represent that. But you know, we're having to stand out against so much content every day that you have to do something that's memorable. And you know, it doesn't mean having to do a TikTok dance either, but it's just about being real. It's about
Being
telling.
authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal bugbear with, you know, with the phrase, the specific phrase, showing up as your authentic self, just because everybody does it. And people that use it most seem to be the least authentic people. It's about keeping it real. It's
Yeah.
about, you know, just letting people get to know the person behind the business. Because again, that's the one thing that's unique. Your IP and your trademarks and everything like that is very kind of, anybody can you know, anybody can have IP, anybody can have trademarks, anybody can, you know, even I've had people copy my method, try and copy my methodology, but it's only you that can deliver it in the way that you do it. So that's the reason why it's so important. And it's tough, it really is. You know, because when I started my business, I felt, can't my work just speak for itself? I just want my work to speak for itself, you know. But unfortunately, your work doesn't have a mouthpiece and it doesn't have a voice.
That's exactly what Pete Sampras said when he was asked why he doesn't smile more or talk more. He says, "I let my racket do the talking," and I love tennis. I think my audience knows I love tennis, or they do now when they listen to this. They know
Mm.
I love Star Wars. They know I love Back to the Future. So my backdrop, I think I've failed dismally with my Zoom backdrop, which I will improve, but it will have something to do with Star Wars, something to do with Back to the Future, because those are the things I kind of grew up with. Indiana Jones, those trilogies, a lot of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg there. So that's got to be part of me. Music is a huge part of my life. I'm the son of two music teachers. I sang. I played the cello, play the violin. Sorry, played the piano and cello. My daughter is a violinist, and wants to go into the scenic arts. So all of that has to come across. I love your
Yeah, I
story.
mean, I would say that those are posts, not and don't put them all in one post. Like talk about your love of Star
Mm,
Wars
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
in a post. I wouldn't put it as your background
Yeah.
and actually worked on Star Wars. Um, but I think because that again could confuse, right? Your personal brand has got to clearly represent who you are and what you do.
Yes.
And so if you're going to go with a Zoom background or even a real background, as would be my recommendation, tell a story that is actually relevant and pertinent to your business. However, the stories around your love of music and your love of Star Wars or Indiana Jones are absolutely add colour. You're colouring in
Mm,
the outlines and add that depth. It's kind of like the seasoning, if you like, to the meat and to veg that is your business.
yes.
You're making it more flavorful, and you're making the experience more memorable. So I do a little thing, quite more than occasionally, but not every week. I'll do like a Friday fun. And I might just sort of talk about things I've done that week. It might be a summary of my week, but it might be I went to this art gallery and I love art and design and all aspects of that. And so I'm a member of like the Tate and the V&A and the Design Museum.
Mm,
I
mm,
use that. That's part of my personal brand. As in, I find going to galleries inspires me, inspires my creativity. I have meetings with clients at galleries. It's an open invitation for clients to come and join me to go and see an exhibition. So it makes me stand out as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And I'll take a photo of us at the exhibition and post that online and tell a story around that. So I always try and link it back to what I do. So there's a very easy kind of reference point for people to go, oh, right, okay, I get why she's posting about this. Otherwise, it becomes a little bit random. Um,
Mm,
but it's nice to show that other side of you, absolutely,
yeah.
and the stories from my childhood or stories from, there's all kinds of things. I told a story about the eye chart behind my dad wanted me to be an optician.
Mm,
And I rebelled and went to art college. But then my friend said, "Isn't it funny that you created a process which you called the vision process, and the symbol for it is an eye?"
why didn't he want you to be an ophthalmologist like him? If he was an eye surgeon, why stop at, optician? Why couldn't you be an
Doctors
ophthalmologist?
work very long hours, and he was always being called out for emergencies and stuff, and he didn't want that for me. But he thought
Fair enough.
he thought he could refer all his patients to
I
me.
started in medicine and got up to year four of a 5-year course before I terminated my clinical training. It wasn't for me, but I did up to 4 years training. So I usually tell people I'll give you 70% of a diagnosis if you tell me you're
That's quite
70% of
dangerous,
your.
isn't it? Little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
It is indeed. Sabna, just a few final question. How would you describe personal branding in one word? Just one word, quick fire answer. How would you condense it down to one word?
Keeping it real. That's three. Sorry.
Keeping it real. Okay, that's one phrase. Very good. What are you reading at right now? What book are you reading, or what was the last book you read, if you are not reading one at the moment?
I'm actually reading a friend of mine who's also in the personal brand space, and so I'll give that. I'm also reading employee advocacy on LinkedIn. So a couple of my friends there, Sarah Clay and Sophie Milliken, who, sorry, that's over there.
From unknown to forgettable. Okay, we'll get links to those.
Both kind of related to what I'm doing as well, but we can all learn from our peers.
Absolutely. What's the biggest myth when it comes to personal branding? I like doing myth busting and sort of taking a polarizing view, which is opposite to the train of thought.
I think the biggest myth is that people will know what you do. Like, people think that people know what's going on in their head.
Yep.
And the fact that you've got to be intentional about it, you've got to tell people, and you've got to tell them again. The amount of people that kind of go, well, I know this stuff. And it's like, well, you're not telling people that you know this stuff. And so how are they going to know? So I think the biggest thing about personal brand is that you feel that it's just you showing up, but it's not. It's you showing up and telling people what you do and being really clear about that communication. So that's what I help people do.
Best business advice you've ever received, or perhaps have given someone else? Best business advice?
Ooh. The best bit of business advice, actually, I'll tell this story, if I may, about when I was writing my book, Let's Get Visible. And I was so petrified of getting visible, though, weirdly. I felt, could the book not just stand up by its own? I actually thought it would do better if it came out with a white man's name on it, rather than a very foreign sounding name on it. And this was imposter syndrome, and this was
yeah, absolutely.
I thought, who's going to take little brown girl seriously on this? Especially because the brand and design industry is very male dominated. There's only 11% of leaders are women, so I thought it would get taken more seriously if it had a white man's name on it, and an English one at that. And my book publisher said to me, don't be so silly, woman. She's Lucy McCarraher from Rethink Press. She said, don't be so silly, woman. How are you ever going to become a key person of influence if you don't put your name on the cover?
So you seriously considered having a nom de plume, like a pseudonym? Really?
That's and that's how terrified I was of getting. So that that's a real story, and that's so I understand the reticence for people to get visible. But my business took off after I got visible. Business took off after I got visible, and that was the difference. And obviously, I had the book effect and the book magic. The authority piece that comes with that. My social media lady actually said to me at the time. She said, "Sapna, you do realise now you've got a book called Let's Get Visible. You're going to have to start getting visible yourself."
Of course.
And I was like, shit, I hadn't really thought of that. But again, that was at the point where I started to get visible, and it made a massive difference.
Sapna, where's the best way? That's a lovely story. Thank you for sharing that. Where's the best way for my audience to connect with you? Is it LinkedIn?
It's LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah,
okay.
It's LinkedIn.
So we'll put the link to that. Final takeaways, final message for everything we've talked about today for the audience. What's the final takeaway? Be authentic, be yourself. What's your one key message?
Yeah, just get over yourself, really. And if you are struggling to get visible and feeling, kind of nervous about it, you just get started. Get in touch with me, and I'm happy to have a call with you. I've actually got a personal brand course starting in January as well, if you're interested in that as well. And
how much is that? How long is that? What's the commitment for the course?
It's 6 months. So we're starting in January 2025.
Okay.
And I've made it super, super affordable. I'm not publishing the prices anywhere at the moment, but I've made it super affordable for people. Okay. So connect with me, and I can send you details.
We'll get a link out to that course as well. All right, great, thank you. Let's wrap it up for today's episode of How to Find More Direct Clients. Stay tuned and stay engaged in discussions on the ever-evolving landscape of language and digital marketing. Until next time, stay on your game, and don't forget to future-proof your career in the AI era. Bye from me, and thank you very much to Sapna Pieroux.
Here's a fun fact about Jason. Jason is a big Star Wars fan. Thanks for tuning in to the How to Find More Direct Clients Than You Can Poke a Stick At podcast. We'll be back soon. In the meantime, why not head over to www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com to access all our tools and resources to monetize and future-proof your freelance translation business. And don't forget to hit the plus button in Apple Podcasts or iTunes, or subscribe in Spotify to be notified when new episodes drop. For regular tips and insights, business strategy, or marketing techniques straight to your inbox, please sign up at www.entrepreneurialtranslator.com.